Hey, what's up, everybody? Kendall here. Welcome back to the Wealthy Legacy Journey. I'm excited for today's episode. Some big things have happened this week, and I'm excited to share those and what those mean and how those all correlate, to my Wealthy Legacy Journey, to the Wealthy Legacy Journey. I'm hoping that, in sharing some of these things, it's going to help, anybody watching this to feel more relatable to what I'm doing. 5 years ago, I was I had knew nothing about real estate. I have no family in real estate, like no experience with real estate whatsoever. The only thing my family had done like two or three live-in flips. Let's see. So my grandparents fixed up one house that I lived in, and so we actually lived with my grandparents at that time when I was a young kid. My parents bought that house, and then the next house that my parents bought, they actually fixed it up because basically we couldn't afford like a really nice house, and but we could afford a cheaper house and then fix it up. And so they fixed that house up, and then they ended up selling that house. My grandparents kind of did the same thing at that time. As far as I understand, when my mom was a kid, my grandparents had done the same thing. And then also, when I was a young kiddo, my grandfather owned a cabinet shop, and then later on, he was an employee for a cabinet shop. And so I have a little bit of a background around construction. My first kind of big adult job, well, partly was a part-time junior high pastor. Wasn't my official title, but that's basically what I did, and it was like 15 it was 15 hours a week at first, and it was 25 hours a week, and you don't get paid anything at a church hardly, mostly, most of the time, at least I didn't. And then my other job, right whenever Libby and I got married, is I was working part-time for my father-in-law. I think it was like 30 hours a week, and my main job was pouring cultured marble at his marble and granite shop, and that was terrible manual labor. It was dealing with lots of chemicals, and it wasn't fun. And so just a few years ago, I was knee deep in, dead end job, making no money. First year Libby and I were married, we lived off of like 12 grand. Like, I have no idea how that, I mean, obviously it was like a God budget. Like, there's no way we lived through that, without the Lord. And that's crazy that we, survived through it. Lots of good people and help as we needed. But then I made this journey through real estate, and it's had its ups and downs. And we've had some times where it's really, really great, and sometimes where it's not been so great. And so this week, I actually fully agreed to start a job, and I did that for two reasons. Number one, my family needs a stability, and it's because I put myself in this predicament through not walking out the wealthy legacy journey well and disciplined, and so I've fallen into this bad cycle, bad pattern of action cycle, and just not managing my business finances well. And that book report is almost done. It's been way more intense to put it together. I wanted to do a good job, but it's been a lot. But basically I mentioned how business number one was supposed to be great. Business number two was supposed to be better. And this time, as I'm kind of reworking what it's going to look like, it's going to be different. Um, but I want to be really honest with this. Like, one of the biggest things, and I was just talking to Libby about this last night, is there's three ways in my life right now that I'm honestly scared of relapsing. Number one, to spend everything I make as fast as I make it. I did that with flips really bad. After when we started making money with flips, we basically went from the season of making 12,000 a year to now we were making at that time. I want to say we were probably 6,000 a month, and so we were basically making in 2 months. We made the maybe like 2 or 3 years prior in the whole year. So we were doing so much better financially. And there was like a backlog of things that we needed. But then we kind of hit this place where we could have slowed down, but we just allowed our lifestyle to expand to meet our now income. And I felt like I had earned it, to be honest with you. And then I kind of did the same thing, or very much did the same thing, after doing the land deals with Aaron and Carson's. We kind of went through this really tight season, and I kept making the excuse that I couldn't really have a good budget because my income as an entrepreneur was all over the place. And I talked about that a little bit last week. And we're restructuring how we're doing things in the budget. But But to be honest with you, like one of the things I'm really scared about is that I'll spend everything as fast as I make it. Another thing that I'm scared of is that just as I begin to gain traction, I'll quit. It's something I did in flipping. It's something I did with the land stuff with Aaron and Carson. And I didn't 100% believe in those models, but there may be things about what I'm doing right now in this role that I may not 100% believe in, but that doesn't mean that I just need to jump ship because I can find a better way to do it. I got to stick with what's working and take slow and gradual steps forward. Um, but the both of those are things that I've done before, and that scares me. And the third thing is that I'll overwork and I put my family on the back burner, and I've done that time after time after time after time. And all three of those things are scary to me. I'm genuinely, it's a genuine concern that I'll just relapse and do those things again. Those are the negative, actions of life that I have started to form grooves on that I want to do different. But I read this verse this morning and it really inspired me. It was John chapter 10, verse 10. The thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy. And I say that all the time, but I didn't really recognize that there was a powerful second part to this verse. So I read it again today. I was like, how have I missed that? The second part is, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. And it doesn't mean like an abundant life necessarily, like from like a prosperity gospel mindset, but just that like there's ways, like when we live in the fullness of Christ, like that's where our abundance is. And one of the things that I've struggled with in overworking, putting my family second, quitting whenever I'm just gaining traction, spending everything that I make is because I have struggled up to this point to be satisfied with what I have, to just be at peace, to be, excited and grateful. And I feel like when I read that this morning, it hit me that it's like having life abundantly. A huge part of that is just being grateful for what I have. For me, all the problems that I have in my life are first world problems. There isn't many of us in the United States that have non first world problems. Like most of our problems are first world problems. Just for example, the other day I was talking to my dad on the phone, and my drive to the office and back is just about an hour. And I was like, ah man, just doing this long drive again. It's kind of a grind. And then it just hit me. It was like, why am I complaining about this? I'm sitting in an air conditioned vehicle for an hour, and I can use this time to talk on the phone. I can use this time to like listen to podcasts or books or sermons, or even listen to the radio. Or a lot of times I just have nothing on at all, and it's just quiet. It's my time to think. And that sure is a lot better than what I had a few years ago when I was breaking my, back working. I was only 15 minutes from the house, but sweating like a dog every day, working with chemicals and making nothing to do it. And, you know, and I was letting the have not steal the joy out of my life and steal, some of that abundance. Um, Hopefully the air conditioning just kicked on isn't too loud. But yeah, so that really hit me. And then I wrote down these three safeguards that I put in place to counter, those three concerns that I have. So number one concern being I spend everything as fast as I make it. My first safeguard is that, Libby and I have created specific accounts, including, have fun accounts, but specific accounts within our account. So it's not just like money goes to the account and then it has to be diverted from there. But, like for us, like we now have a gas account, we have a groceries account, we've got a miscellaneous account. And so instead of me ever looking at my account and going like, oh yeah, like, let's say I make, just because I don't really want to talk about necessarily my budget, I guess, but let's just say like I make $1,000 in a month. I make more than that. Let's just say it's $1,000 a month. And I donate I give like, I don't know, let's just say $20 to my miscellaneous fund. But then I treat that miscellaneous fund has its own card. And this is a part of like the Dave Ramsey every dollar, system. But I give $20 to, my miscellaneous account, and that has its own card. And that's maybe what's hooked up to Amazon. And so I treat that as its own bank account. And when that $20 gets to zero, I stop spending. Like there's no more money going into the miscellaneous account that month. Like that's 100% of the money that account is going to get that month. And so I don't get any more money in that account until I get another paycheck. So I'm not going to accidentally take from somewhere else, such as my investing fund, which, our investing fund depending on the month, we'll get a couple $100, and then there's a couple months throughout the year where there's like a fifth week, and the way we pay ourselves is every week, and so on those months with 4 weeks or 5 weeks, excuse me, we'll get an extra uh, paycheck, and that whole extra paycheck goes towards the investment fund. So like we basically say, hey, how can we give a little bit to our investment fund and live off of 4 weeks a month, and then you have 4 months a year, because if you do obviously 4 times 12, it's 48 weeks, and if it's 2 weeks in a year, so it's going to be 4 months of the year where there's 5 weeks. How can we take that bonus paycheck, treat it as like a bonus, and put that 100% towards investments? So that's first safeguard I put in place. Second thing is, just to begin to gain traction, I'll quit. And so on the second safeguard is, I've committed at least 2 years to Nathan whenever I started. So it was mid-May of 2023, and I committed at least 2 years. So that would be May of 2025. And so, I'm not going to be concerned about just doing this for like 3 or 6 months, making a whole bunch of money, and then moving on, because I'm going to do this slow and steady over time, because slow and steady wins the race. I'm also making money slower this time than I have in anything else. While that's kind of painful, I think it's actually going to be really healthy for me, in the sense that I'm gonna have to really learn the value of that money again. I had an understanding of how hard it was to make when I was doing the manual labor job, working for the church and my father-in-law. Then I just started making money so fast that I kind of just lost a respect and perspective on that. And then the third safeguard, the third thing I'm worried about is overworking and putting my family on the back burner. But the third safeguard is everyone around me encourages a slower pace. And for me, I have a very, good defined level of success. So in my job, there's going to basically be deals, and my job is to close those deals that come through. My success point is 6 deals a month. Everything on top of that is cherry on top. But I'm able to, make what I need as an income, set aside money for investing. And I know I'm still going to have time for doing the investments, for doing the tax sales, doing the different stuff that we've been talking about. And I'm really excited about taking you on that journey. But I'm going to be able to do that just on those 6 deals a month. So if I choose to do more deals, I can make more money. But also if I'm like, yeah, I need to give more time to my family this month, or more than 6 deals is just more than I want, because I treasure my time with my kiddos and my wife. That is what success is. So really having that in my mind of, because for me, for a long time when I was a kid, I felt really lazy. And whenever I started having success in the business world, it came from, chasing after big goals and doing bigger things. And I kind of got to this place where it was like, it was just never enough. I always wanted more and more and more. I always had to do more deals and more deals and more deals so I could make more money and more money and more money. But then I wanted to move to bigger opportunities, better opportunities. And I just kept tripping over myself in that process. I started sprinting, and then it was just like, boom, just like everything would just fall apart. And then I have to restart, and now I'm restarting again. But this one's going to be different, like I said. And so those are three safeguards. That verse was really powerful for me. This last week we had a garage sale. It was our first garage sale we've done as a couple, Libby and I. It was the last garage sale Libby and I will ever do. And we both agreed when we walked away, it was like, man, you really have to leverage your time well in life, and you have to leverage your capital well. And we spent 2.5 days, 3 days preparing. And then Libby had lots of other preparation time before that, and like making signs and putting signs out and like actually doing the garage sale and all that kind of stuff. And, I think out of it, we ended up making like $400. And it's like, man, if we had used that time effectively somewhere else, like we could have made better returns. And, so I guess what I would say is, if you're looking at building up your investment fund, and the only way that you can build up your investment fund to get started is a garage sale, and you don't have means to be able to make money in any other way, like, yes, there are lots of reasons at the beginning of this journey. For me, over the past few years, all of my journey has been about trading my time for money. When I joint venture with people, what it would look like is I would put very little to, at first it was I was putting in money and my time. And then I got to the point where I was building those relationships. I put less and less money, to now I'm to the point where on bigger deals, I can put no money. but I'm still doing all the sweat equity. I don't carry the loan because I don't like carrying the debt. Um, so I'm still in that phase of trading my time for money, but I trade my time for a lot of money now. Versus a little bit now with this job situation that I have, that's not the same case as what it has been over the last few years that I've kind of built to. I'm taking that step back in order to take a step forward, um, which is hard to say. But, if the best way for you to be able to trade your time for money right now is a garage sale, then do that. Like if you're thinking about like, how do I get that first $1,000 so I can go to a tax sale and I can buy, some land and I can turn 1,000 into 2,000 or 3,000. That's awesome. Get that first 1,000. That's gonna be the hardest part. Like getting your first 1,000 from like the first time that you reach a goal is always the hardest. So like the first 1,000 is always harder than the second. You know, the second 1,000 is always harder than the third. And then your next milestone is going to be getting to that 10,000. And it's going to be really hard to get to 100,000. Like now I've hit that 100,000 mark twice, and I can see how I'm gonna really go towards that mark really quickly again because I'm confident in that process. Like I just know what to do to get there, to build up that much capital. And but for me now, like that 500,000 mark, like that to me, or even honestly 250,000, like to have a 250,000 set aside, like that's the next big mark for me. And so I know that together we're going to be able to run to 100,000 really quickly because I've been there before. There's also lots of inflation. It's really easy to make money right now in certain degrees. And I think that that definitely helps in a massive way. But there's also like harder things about the economy that make it much more difficult. And for example, because credit is so available, it's harder and harder to get good deals because everybody has access to credit. Whereas if you were in an economy where credit wasn't as available and people were pretty much only spending off of their savings and cash that they had, there would be a lot more deals. So it'd be easier to buy, but it would be harder to sell because there wouldn't be as many buyers or as many able-bodied buyers in the market. And so, you're always giving up. Like right now, we're in a seller's market, so it's easy to sell, but that buying can be difficult sometimes. So, you know, figuring that out's going to be good together. For us, garage sale, we're past that season. But if you're in that, like that's totally okay. And getting the job, the consistency is really good. The hard part for me is being in that box is really tough. But I really have to focus on the good parts of the job and not the bad parts. And so I actually wrote a list together and I sent it over to my good friend Nathan to hold me accountable to this as I'm going. And I just want to read you. I wrote the hard parts first. So I said, "Will be hard." I said it'll be difficulty going from a much higher split of, used to be like 50-50 on everything I was doing to, working with this guy and this model of 5%. That to me it's mentally difficult, for me to go from 50% split to 5%, commission based. Um, it'll also be difficult to see the paydays that I produce in bringing these deals home because I've done this model in business before. It's going to be difficult to not see those payouts in a big way. For example, if I bring a deal to the table that makes 30 grand, like my commission on that's, $1,500. And that's just going to be tough. It's going to be tough watching somebody else make 30 grand while I'm making $1,500. And I just know that about me and because of what I've seen in this business. And I've been that guy making the 30,000, 50,000, 100,000 before. I threw away that opportunity because I didn't treat it with respect and handle it well. And I know I'll be able to get there again, but it's going to be difficult and it's going to suck where I'm at right now trying to get back to that place. And so for you, if you've never seen that before, or even if you have seen it before, you're trying to figure out how to get back, like we're going to go through, I told Nathan, I was like, this is going to suck. And you're going to have to remind me that like this, this situation is going to suck. And sometimes you just have to push through that hard and pain and difficulty to get where you're trying to go. And so anyways, yeah, I'm gonna have to get through that. But what'll be the good? Well, it's good that, it's nice that these deals are basically spoon fed me and I don't have to handle the entire process. There's other people in place to walk through that process. So I don't have to handle every aspect. I've never been in that situation before. I'm usually the guy who kind of does it all. Also, this provides some level of guaranteed stability financially for my family from day one because it's a draw plus kind of commission system. So that's really cool. I've never had anything like that before. Uh, and but I also get the opportunity to see some of the profit. I mean, at least I'm not just like on a full salary where I'm just stuck. It doesn't matter how much I produce. And while I'm in the car each day doing stuff, because I'm going to have to now go to like sales calls and walk properties and stuff like that, um, I'll have time to listen to books and to sermons and improve my knowledge base. And I'm also much more excited about driving the AC than I would be breaking my back on a job site every day because I've been there and I've done that. I also look forward to learning some new aspects to real estate, especially in the direct to seller acquisition space. As each time I've gone through a new situation in real estate, I've grown, and I believe it's everything I've done up to this point that will help me thrive and bring a lot of success to the team. This is another great stepping stone forward. I'm also excited to have the flexibility to work on my own deals on the side as I build up my cash to do so. I get to work with an open minded and open handed team who doesn't mind passing ideas around for how to accomplish real estate at higher and higher levels. And I also get to relax quite a bit as the responsibility to build the process and the team will be off of my shoulders for a little bit. I know with some rest, I'll be ready to take on the world again, but I now, uh, I know I can really take it one step at a time. I'm also glad that I'll be working. Part of what I'm doing. It's kind of in the same vicinity that everybody kind of like offices in the same place. So this guy basically connected with Nathan, and so they office like next door to each other. And so I'll still get to work really close with a good friend Nathan, and that's exciting for me because I know daily he's going to help hold me to my financial long-term goals. But like with NK Legacy Property, that was Nathan and I trying to build something together, and we realized like while we're really good friends, we just don't do business well together, and that's okay. Like, and we do joint ventures together. Well, we've done that in the past, but trying to like run a full business from the ground up together, like it just wasn't clicking for us, and that's totally cool. And so he'll be able to help hold me accountable to my long-term financial goals. But we won't be 100% tied in everything that we're doing in business, which can muddy those waters relationally. It'll be great just to have my friend back in that regard. I'm also excited to be with the team who will cheer on my growth as they take steps forward instead of trying to hold me back from becoming more. I've never had to deal with a negative group personally, but after hearing Randy's stories, I know I'm blessed in that. Finally, I get to work with a fun group of people a few days a week. But then I also get to be home a few days a week working in the trailer, which is awesome. Then I'll probably go to most appointments midday while just the family isn't like ready to connect. And then like after that, when I'm done, I'll be free mentally to hang out with them once my day is wrapped up when I return. And I'm also already praying that the Lord would use my in-person interactions with sellers to bless them, possibly pray for them, and maybe even bring them to know the Lord. That I would be able to maximize my time for ministry as well as work. And basically, like what I hope you notice out of that is my what will be hard was definitely there, but it's two sentences. But then I really dug deep for what will be good, and I just had thing after thing after thing after thing, and I probably if I just kept chewing and I could have kept going. Um, because I'm excited about this opportunity, to be honest with you guys. At first I wasn't, but then I started writing on all of the good, and I chose to focus on the excitement and the good of where I'm at right now. And it got me fired up. But also I have goals that I can look at every day. I mean, I pull up my savings goals often, several times a week, whenever I'm getting frustrated or I feel like I'm getting distracted or I'm wanting to spend. I'll look up those goals of saying, where am I going? And even actually today, I wrote in my notes for my savings goals, I wrote down the definition of passive or of active income, investment income, and passive income so I can know the difference. So I'm not going to spend off of my active income. If I'm ever trading my time for money, I don't want to spend that money because that means I'm spending my time. Like if I go work a job to earn $40,000 and then I spend that $40,000 to buy a truck, then that means I'm spending my time to purchase that truck. But what I want to do is I want to use my job to save $40,000. I want to use that $40,000 to, in some sort of passive type way, let's just say I turn that $40,000, I double it into $80,000, and now I've made $40,000 passively. My 40,000 has made me 40,000. Well, now I can spend that 40,000 that I've now earned passively through investments on the truck. So I'm not that's money that was made from money. Like those are what we call money babies. So like my money, my it's the money that came from money. I can use that to buy the things, but I'm not going to use the money that came from my time to buy the things. It's actually, Robert Kiyosaki in his book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I've got the sticker on my water bottle, and this is what I would do. The middle class would use their salary, their income, and see, and they would use it to purchase liabilities, which would become expenses on their income statements. So they would basically fill up the liabilities column of their balance sheet. They have no assets, just a bunch of liabilities. So their expenses would be way too heavy, and everything they had would be going to these expenses. And that's why Dave Ramsey says, hey, you got to go out, you got to dump the liabilities, pay those liabilities off to lighten up this column. And then once this column is almost empty, then you can start focusing on adding assets in to get cash flow positive. You've got to go from cash flow negative to cash flow positive. And that's where the rich income statement over here, you can see where income, basically this income creates assets, which creates income and assets. And you get this like back and forth between income and assets and income and assets. And then you use your income from the assets once it's grown on top of itself to now buy liabilities, but you have less liabilities than you have assets. So even at the end of every month, you're net positive no matter what you're spending, because you're making sure that your level of liability stays below your level of assets. But you're not using your income to buy the liabilities. You're using, I guess, the income from the assets, not the income from your personal time and energy. And so that's powerful, and that's what I'm going to try to do. But I think there's this misconception that you have to have a lot of money in order to be able to do that. And so I'm really excited that now I'm in this position of I have a job. I feel like I'm going to be way more relatable to a lot of people is my hope in this journey. But I've got a job. I'm going to make I'm making just a little bit above the median household income in the United States, which is $80,000. I'll say this, I'm not making more than 30% above that. And I guess I could just come out and say it. So I don't know, don't hold this against me, but so basically like what I know for sure I'm going to make is 100,000. And maybe that's a lot for some people, maybe it's not. And so that's like our main income. And it feels really weird to say that out loud. The only reason I say that is because I really hope that like helps maybe put some perspective on things. If you're making less than that, please don't think that you cannot do this. Like maybe I'd be able to save faster than you, but I know that you'll be able to put together some money. Like if you are determined enough, if you fight for it hard enough, it may take you longer to save less money, but you can get there. I know that for a fact. And like it's so powerful once your money starts making money. And so like even if you save $1,000, you have to scrape to get $1,000, but you can turn that $1,000 into 2,000. And you can turn that 2,000 to 4,000. Like that gets crazy in a hurry. So he told you about the bank account. And yeah, the last thing is, well, I want to talk to you guys actually about the back half of the the back half of the chessboard, excuse me. And this is really powerful, like what I just said. And I found this quote and it was perfect. There's a story loved by mathematicians of an ancient emperor of India who was so pleased with one of his palace wise men who had just invented the game of chess that he offered this sage a reward of his own choosing. The sage, who was also a good mathematician, told his ruler that he would like just 1 grain of rice on the first square of the chessboard. Absolutely nothing. Let's just say that's your $1,000, right? Just 1 grain of rice on the first square of the chessboard. 2 grains on the second square. That's 2,000. 4 grains on the third square, and so on, doubling the number of grains of rice each time until all 64 squares of the chessboard had grains on them. This seemed to the emperor to be a very modest request, so he readily agreed and called for his servants to bring some rice. He was surprised to find the rice quickly covered the chessboard and then filled the entire palace. It soon became apparent that the emperor would be unable to keep his promise. In fact, the first half of the chessboard would have to accommodate a heap of rice weighing 100,000 kilograms, which I don't really know what that is for reference, but is on the second half of the board that the amount of rice reaches astronomical proportions. Literally, because of the rice grains on the whole board were placed, if the rice grains on the whole board were placed end to end, they would reach to the nearest star, Alpha Centauri, which I don't know what that is, and back again. It's really, really far. Piled up, the heap of rice would be larger than Mount Everest. On the 64 square of the chessboard alone, there would be 2 to the 63rd power. I don't know what that is. That's thousands, millions, billions, trillions. I think it's quadrillions and then quintillion. So it'd be, I think five would be quintillion. So I think it's 9 quintillion, 223 quadrillion, 372 trillion, 36 billion, 854 million, 775,000. I'm saying that probably wrong. 808 grains of rice, more than 2 billion times as much as the whole first half of the board. You started with 1, and now you're to a number that I can't even read because I don't ever look at a number that big. My point to that is the game of multiplication. It's not about where you start, it's how you work the process. I just want you to see that process worked through. So let's say that you start off with $1,000. Let's say the first year, let's just say every year you double it. I'm very confident that every year you can double your money. In fact, with less money, it's easier to double. It's going to get harder and harder as you get more and more money, not vice versa. So year 2, you have 2,000, 4,000, 8,000, 16,000. Okay, now we're to year 6, 32,000, 64, 128, 256, 512,000. So in a decade, you turned $1,000 into $500,000 by doubling it. That's just one decade. So now let's go to decade 2. 1,020,000. I'm just going to say 1,024,000. I'm just going to say it by the million. So 1 million, 2 million, 4 million, 8 million, 16 million. Did I do that right? Yeah. 32, 65, 131, 262, 524, because there's also the $1,000. It's actually 524,288,000. So looking at that, you started off with $1,000, and in 20 years, you made that $524,000. Now, let's just say you start working at age 20. So I started, I really got aggressive investing at 20. 25 is where I'm at right now. So that means by the time I'm, according to this, and, again, doubling, it's harder and harder as you get more and more money. But you're talking $500 million at this point by, my 45th birthday on this trajectory, if I just started with $1,000. So that, I think that's a very achievable goal. And so let's go one more decade, because I would say, most people are working probably about 5 decades, probably from really aggressively, you're working from about 25 to 75, but let's just say 25 to 65. So decade number 1, you started with, 1,000 and you worked your way up. So now we're at, then we got to 500,000 and now we're to $500 million. So I guess theoretically we should be somewhere around $500 billion after 30 years. So you're 1 billion, 2 billion, 4 billion, 8 billion, 16 billion, 33 billion, 67 billion, 134 billion, 268 billion, 536 billion. So now you are talking about literally 1,000x growth. No, not even that. Well, yeah, somehow maybe the number is off somewhere because we started with 1. But anyways, maybe it's like 1 year shifted off or something. But I guess what I'm trying to say, started with 1,000, you got to 500,000, then you got to $500 million, then you got to $500 billion. All right, and that's just literally on my calculator. I did 1,000. Like, you can do this for yourself. 1,000, and then times 2, and just keep clicking equal. Every time you click equal, if your calculator performs the same function that mine does, it'll just continue to perform that same thing over again. So you have 1,000, 2,000, 4,000, 8,000, 16,000. Like what I hope you see is, when you trade your time for money, you're trading your time for $15 an hour, $20 an hour, $25 an hour. That's fairly linear. You may become more and more productive as a human being and increase your dollars per hour as you go, but it's still fairly linear. It would probably look, like a linear path that begins to kind of nose up as it goes to the point that you're, pretty much, at max capacity for what you feel confident in doing. And that's just your growth curve forever. Versus if you can go on top of what you can do with your own time, you can turn this into an exponential growth curve. And it looks like this. And yes, people on a linear, like I have a lot of people that have made more money than me in the linear path because they're going like this. And my path has kind of done this number. But, at some point, that exponential growth curve is going to meet and then well surpass way into the stratosphere of what you're going to be able to accomplish just trading your time for money. You cannot trade time for money your entire life. At first, you will be trading time for money in this process, but you're going to get more and more efficient at trading your time for more and more money. And then at the same time, you're going to be getting more and more efficient at trading your money for money. And then you're going to eventually hit a point where you get so good at trading your money for more money, turning your money into even more money, that you're not going to have to trade your time for money anymore. You're going to be able to hire somebody else to trade their time for money. And in their process of working for you, trading their time for money, they're going to take your money and turn it into even more money. And that's the power of growth. There's nothing greedy about that because now you're empowering that person with the opportunity that you had to build up to this point. And then, go out there and use your money for a good purpose. But I can tell you this, there's nothing, worthy or good or, more noble about working, 40, 50 hours a week your entire life so you have no time for ministry. There's nothing then more noble about working a dead end job that you don't enjoy, or feeling like you're stuck in a rut, or working your life away where you don't get time with your family and your kids. There's nothing more noble about any of those things than having wealth because of wisdom. In fact, all over the Bible you can see where God talks about uh the wealthy and the wise kind of correlating, and how much the Bible talks about the prestige of wise. And so right now, hope in this journey as I'm getting wisdom and I'm passing anything, it's just a pass through. Don't think of this as like, oh, Kendall's trying to give me wisdom. Like, no, I'm literally just like passing it through. So like somebody else smarter than me said something and I was like, wow, that's really good. I'm just going to say that again. Like I'm just repeating. Okay. And so, I hope that this is a place where you can get those specific knowledge. Like I hear all sorts of cool stuff all day, but I only want to bring stuff here that pertains to the wealthy legacy journey. And so, this really being kind of the second week of this kind of new format, I wanted to bring a lot of stuff to the table and let you guys know what was happening with the job and let you not guys know about like, really how I'm trying to keep that positive mindset and just some of the different things that are going on. So I'm really excited about this. I'm excited because I believe in that growth curve. I believe 30 years in, let's just go to 40 years for a full career. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 5.49. I don't know. It says something EU11. So what I think we're at half a trillion. So now we're probably like half a quadrillion, something like that. Probably like $500 trillion. It looks like 549 trillion, 756 billion. Like you're not going to be, there's not that much. I mean, I don't think there's the ability to get that far because I don't think there's that much things to leverage to even create that kind of wealth. At least there shouldn't be, unless there's like just stupid inflation that just doesn't make sense for anybody. But neither here nor there, figure out something you're passionate about. Find ways to trade your money for money. There's lots of people who don't do it in real estate. I just got done watching a video another of those Mike Maloney videos, and he's all into gold. Like that's how he's built. What he's built is on the investment of gold. That's an investment that I want to get into is gold and silver. I want to understand it better. But my main niche right now is real estate, and that's okay. I'm going to stay in that lane, but I do want to dabble in some other things. But my main focus is going to stay right here. And then we also have algorithms, which is going to be another place of main focus. Looking back, I would have probably done things different, but now that it's here, it's going to be here to stay. We've already put a lot of work into it, so I'm not going to just let it go. And I really had to weigh that one out a lot. I'm not just saying because you have it, you shouldn't let it go. Sometimes it's better to put things on the back burner for a while and then bring them back. But this one's there. And so I know it's there. And so, anyways, the last thing that I wanted to talk about though is really, as we're going into this, the hesitation about over leveraging too far into the unknown is a big risk. Um, you know, let's just take the example of our emperor friend that we just read about. He ventured into the unknown with the way he bought that chessboard and didn't second check the math, and now realized that he basically just sold a game or bought a game for the price of more rice than would ever, than you could ever accumulate at one given time. Um, so, he ventured into the unknown there. And what I've noticed about leverage, two things. Number one, when you have debt, it makes you comfortable to do things that you would normally not be comfortable to do with your own money. Number two, and this kind of correlates with that, is that it almost forces you to go into the unknown too quickly. And what I mean by that is, in this model, we're going to have to get really creative at some point. Once we hit that six-figure mark and above, we're going to really start having to get creative. And I think we'll be able to get all the way seven-figure. But once we get to especially six, seven-figure, there's going to be a point in there where it's going to get really, really hard to continue doubling our money every single month. We're probably going to have to start leveraging joint ventures, not debt, but using other people's money, maybe building some type of fund model where everybody's getting paid out, but it's not actually carrying debt. We're gonna have to keep making decisions in the right ways. But the thing is like, if I can go out there and I can borrow $1 million for real estate right now at 12% interest, I'm gonna feel like, okay, well, now I want to borrow as much of that as possible to maximize my efforts. Number one, you're actually losing a big part of your profitability in the cost of the money itself. And number two, you're going to try to push that gas pedal all the way to 100 to feel like you're able to maximize what you can of that million. And it causes you to grow this place so quickly where it's like, okay, well, yesterday I had access to $100,000. But now they're telling me I can leverage that 100,000 to get $1 million in loans, and so now I can actually buy $1 million of real estate. Well, in order to make the same returns on $1 million of real estate, you're going to have to do a different kind of real estate, or you're going to have to do way more deals than you're used to. And so now you're going to have to grow your team really quickly. You're going to have to grow your knowledge and your skill set really quickly. And it's just going to change things really, really fast. It puts you into a dangerous place. Whereas if you just keep on that pace of doing the slow and steady, doing the right things, like that will get you there. And that's what this journey is all about. And so again, I'm just going to say what's written on my mirror, but today I will be committed to being the most dedicated and interdependent tortoise there has ever been. I read it morning, I read it in the night. I'm working on memorizing my mission statement. I'm not really quite there yet, but I'm going to keep working on that. And there's going to be lots of good things that come out of this journey if we can stay dedicated, if we can stay consistent. So next week, I start the new job. I'm going to let you guys know how that goes. And, basically we're halfway through October. So we've got, about 10 weeks left, which is really nothing, of kind of getting set up and prepared for, a strong start to 2024. I'm told that the tax sale data comes out 2 weeks before. So first Tuesday of November is November 7th. And so we'll start getting that tax data put together in 2 weeks on October 24th. And so then we'll be able to start seeing if that looks like it's going to be a promising month that we can take advantage of. And I think there's going to be lots of good growth in this. So I'm going to keep you guys updated on what's happening, just kind of what's working, what's not working, how the job opportunity is going, and what it's like to, have a job. Right now, it's kind of hard because I like to sprint, but in the day to day right now, it's just kind of sticking to what I know is true. And I go to bed thinking about how I wish I was, and I had to fight myself and say, it's not that I wish I was further ahead, but I'm happy with where I'm at. And then I wake up the next day and go, okay, I just have to get done what I need to get done today. And I do have growth stuff that I'm going to get done today, but I'm not going to be at a whole new place today than I was yesterday because I'm not over leveraging myself and I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm not sprinting. I'm just moving forward at a dedicated pace. But I can tell you this, that on this path in 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 years from now, I'm going to be in a place that nobody else hardly is. So maybe very few people are in that place because I was dedicated. You're not going to see the results in a day. You're not going to see them in a week. But over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, I'm going to have unparalleled results if I can stick with the program. So I'm going to stick with my program. You stick with your program. We're going to get through this together. So with that said, that's been another episode of the Wealthy Legacy Journey. Thanks so much for stopping by. Here's to you and your wealthy legacy journey. And I will see you guys next week.